Hey guys, welcome back. I am David Bugarin and this is my GTI Hoppelman. Today we are changing the spark plugs on the GTI, but it's not just any regular old spark plug change. We are actually changing the spark plugs to the spark plugs that are recommended by the tuner Equilibrium Tuning. I've had my GTI tuned for about 10,000 miles now by EQT, and it is a stage 1 93 octane tune. I was running the car since I tuned it on the OEM spark plugs. It's due for a spark plug change anyway. I'm about to hit 50,000 miles on the car, so I went ahead and picked up the Brisk ER12S spark plugs that EQT approved as the budget option. The other option is slightly more expensive. These cost about 10 or 11 bucks per spark plug. And the other option, I think it was a $50 per spark plug option. So being that I could go ahead and pick up a budget option and save some money, that's why I went ahead and went with the Brisk ones. I am planning on changing them every 5,000 to 7,000 miles or so anyway, so I figured I'd save some money. And everything I read about these spark plugs in particular there was very good reviews. People had no complaints about them, spoke highly of them. So that's what we're doing today. So thank you for joining me. Let's go ahead and get to it. But before we get into it, I did want to mention one very important thing. I noticed recently when I was pushing the car pretty hard that I did have some knock retard timing of about negative 3.75 to negative 4 degrees on a couple of my cylinders. For the duration of the tune so far, which again has been about 10,000 miles, I haven't really had that problem, and certainly not on a regular basis. So I hope that with updating the spark plugs and to the proper gap recommendations, that some of that retard knock will go away. And I will let you guys know, stick around to the end of the video because I am gonna take it for a drive. We're gonna get a feel, we're gonna measure some of the knock retard timing and make sure that everything is within normal range. That being anywhere between -2, at most -3 degrees. So stick around, I'll let you guys know if I have any improvements in that area as far as the cylinder performance, but that's pretty much it. Keep that in mind, and we're gonna jump back into it. So now that I have each coil pack out and each cylinder has been dusted, I'm going to use this 5/8 spark plug socket to take out the actual spark plugs that are currently in there. Looks pretty nice and toasty. It was just about that time. We're running NGK R1 06K 905601K spark plugs. All right, so now it's time to properly gap my new spark plugs. Like I mentioned, the spark plugs that I'm using are from Brisk. It is the Brisk ER12S silver racing spark plug. Okay, and EQT recommends that they be gapped to 0.024 inches. I picked up this gapping tool from Amazon and it came with the gapping tool and the feeler gauge. So I already have the feeler gauge that is the 0.024 measurement. So we're gonna use that. And I did measure the spark plugs out of the box. They were at 0.025, so pretty close to where I need them to be. I'm going to tighten up that particular gap just a little bit to make sure that it fits with this 0.24 inch recommended gap. So we're gonna go ahead and just place it here in the tool. Set it back here, right. Put my feeler gauge in there, and we're gonna tighten this thing ever so slightly. Okay. And just turn the screw here on the tool. Now I feel that there's no more space in the feeler gauge. We should have a properly gapped spark plug, so I'm going to go ahead and check that out. Should be able to go in there without any room. It's looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to do that to the other 4 spark plugs next, and then we should be ready to put them back in. Okay, so we got all 4 spark plugs back in their cylinder. Let's go ahead and put the coil packs back in their place. All right, so now that everything's tightened up and bolted down, let's go ahead and fire him up. He's alive, he's alive. All right, so that's definitely a good sign. We're gonna go ahead and take him for a drive over the next day or two. I'm gonna go ahead and put on the access port, and we're gonna go ahead and take those measurements and see if the knock retard has improved as I expect and hope that it will. So yeah, let's go for a drive. You might want to put the hood down first. It's been a couple of weeks now that I've been driving the GTI around, and one of the things that I mentioned I was going to be monitoring is the knock retard. So I'm using the Cobb access port to make sure that I'm not getting any unusual or increased knock retard across any of the 4 cylinders. And the great news is that things are actually looking pretty good and pretty normal. I haven't noticed any increased knock retard. In fact, cylinders 2, 3, and 4, there's hardly any knock retard, even when I am pushing it pretty hard. So, I'm glad to say that things are working out pretty good with the Brisk spark plugs. However, I do want to mention, and I just had an instance of it, is that on cylinder 1, I'm getting knock retard of negative 1.5 degrees, and it's only that one cylinder when I'm going from about first to second gear and a pretty low to medium load. So if I'm, going from first to second between 2,500, between 2 and 3,000 RPM, that's where I'm noticing that particular knock retard of negative 1.5 degrees. It is expected to get a little bit of knock retard, especially when you're pushing the car a little bit harder, within the negative 2 to 3 range on any cylinder at any given time when you're driving it pretty hard. So, but that particular behavior there from cylinder 1 was a little unusual to me. So one of the things that I did is I actually went back, I checked the spark plugs, I make sure they were gapped properly, and they are. And I took the coil pack just, to see if maybe there's an issue with that particular coil pack. I took the coil pack from the first cylinder and I put it into the third cylinder. And I'm still getting that particular knock retard in those same instances from cylinder 1 only. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm not getting any kind of check engine lights. The performance of the car seems great. It's not giving me any other trouble or issues. But one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep an eye on it over the next few weeks. If I do notice anything out of the norm or just worsening knock retard from that first cylinder, I'll let you guys know. I'll make another video, maybe talking about it, getting more into some technical specifics about what could be the issue, if any. But again, for now, I'm not overly concerned. No other major issues to report. All the other cylinders are working just fine. In fact, right now, I've still been driving around for about the last 5 or 10 minutes, and I haven't had any additional instances of knock retard or increased knock retard from that cylinder 1. I'll show you guys on the access port a little bit later what I'm talking about, so you kind of get an idea of the way I have it laid out and how I'm measuring the knock retard across the 4 cylinders, and also keeping an eye on the knock retard average, which would let me know if there's any additional knock retard from cylinders 2 and 4, which I'm not currently actively monitoring on the access port. So that little drive through those curves there, I wasn't exactly pushing it too hard, but I did get some additional knock retard when from that cylinder 1 of negative 3.75 degrees. So that there would be an instance of like, okay, it's not happening regularly. If I do push it kind of hard, cylinder 1, shows a little bit of increased knock retard. But again, everything else is pretty tame. I'm not getting any additional knock retard from the other 3 cylinders. So, that's just one of those things that there could be some ghost knock. Those sensors in those cylinders that are, they're very sensitive, and they're basically just there to protect the car, to make sure that if there is something wrong, misfiring, that it's kind of protecting itself to make sure that you're not subjecting it to increased loads if there is something wrong with it. But again, any other time that I've been driving pretty hard, like right now, kind of just went a little bit harder on the throttle, no additional knock retard from cylinder 1. And if there was a problem, I'd probably be seeing it higher in the -4, -5 range. Every time that I went full, wide open throttle, that would be something way more concerning. So again, just kind of trying not to get overly worried here. That's why sometimes, I guess, some people refer to the access port as the anxiety port, but at the same time, if there is something wrong or an underlying issue with my car, I want to know about it. I'm not just gonna like turn the blind eye and pretend that nothing's happening. So I mean, the access port is useful for that reason, but you kind of just have to not take things out of context, and you should be okay. So I did want to show you guys real quick what I'm referring to with regards to the Cobb access port. As you can see, I'm looking at the knock retard average. That's the middle slot on the left column there. And then I'm looking specifically at cylinder 1 and 3. And then if I notice that there's additional knock retard average, or if I didn't get any particular knock retard from cylinders 1 and 3, but I see something pop up on the knock retard average slot, then I'll probably switch the gauges on the screen here to look at cylinders 2 and 4 to see if there was any additional knock in those cylinders. And again, if it's low, less than -2 degrees, or actually more than -2 degrees, I'm sorry, then that's something I'm going to keep an eye out for. But that's kind of the way that I'm keeping an eye on things. And as you can see there, the most on this last little drive that I was on from cylinder 1 was a knock retard of -3.75 degrees when I was, I think it was under a pretty hard acceleration, and I'm not, again, overly concerned about that. So just wanted to give you guys a close look at exactly what I'm looking at. So if you have any additional questions with regards to that, let me know. All right, there was one last thing I wanted to mention, guys, before I let y'all go and wrap this video up. That is to invite you all to like and subscribe this video. So far, I mean, I'm getting a number of you guys that are watching my other videos, and I really appreciate that. But I would love to see more of you subscribing. And let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about these takeaways, with regards to knock retard. Am I overthinking things, looking into it too much? There was one particular YouTuber, Jewel City. Y'all might know him. He had a really awesome GTI, makes some pretty cool videos. But he reported something similar to what I'm experiencing with my first cylinder. And what it ended up being is that on his fuel injector, there was a bit of buildup on the very tip of the fuel injector, where the fuel sprays out into the cylinder chamber. And so what he did is he actually just ended up replacing the fuel injector, and it ended up fixing his issue. He no longer had knock in that one cylinder. So I might have something similar, but again, with the values that I have right now, I'm not seeing any other issues with the performance of the car. I'm not gonna do that yet, but I am keeping it in the back of my mind. One of the things that I am gonna do is, or that I already did actually, is I bought this particular product from Liquimoly. It's basically a direct injection cleaner. So as you guys know, these GTIs are direct injection vehicles as opposed to port injectors. So Liquimoly, the DI Jectron gasoline direct injection cleaner, I've heard great things about it. So I don't expect this realistically to fix this particular problem, assuming that it is a problem. But what I do expect is that this is definitely going to help long term. I am going to incorporate this into the regular routine of the maintenance of my car. Highly recommend it for other GTI owners, or if you have a vehicle that is a direct injection vehicle. But with that, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Let me know down below in the comments if you have any questions or thoughts with regards to anything that we did or discussed today. I really love the engagement and the input that you guys have been giving me in the comments of my other videos. I have also felt confident and happy to answer any questions that you guys have come to me where I do have those answers. So I feel like I'm able to share my knowledge as well as gain any knowledge from you guys. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying my best to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you just go ahead and click on subscribe there, I'd really appreciate it. I do have some more fun GTI content on the way for you guys. And again, thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all on the next one.